Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode on our Open to Happiness podcast. I am your host, Nicoletta, and today I will be joined by Gill Whitty-Collins, a British based in Geneva, Switzerland. Gill is the author of Why Men Win at Work. She's a consultant and executive coach, and we're going to have an amazing conversation today around gender equality and happiness. Hello, Gill, and very welcome to our podcast.
Hello, and thank you so much for asking me to come talk to you today.
I am really pleased you accepted to join us, Gill. So let's dive straight into the topic. What is, in your view, gender equality about?
For me, this is very simple. Women are 50% of the population, 51% actually, at the latest count. And yet, when we look across the world, we look at any company, any organization, any society, any country, really anywhere, business, sport, politics, whatever, when we look at the top levels of those organizations, we see 90% plus men leading them. So the question is, where did all the women go? Where did those 51% of women go? We know that women have equal intelligence. I don't think anyone would dare to debate that. Equal competence, equal leadership ability. And yet, somehow, no matter how equal we start out in any organization, every level you go up, the women slowly slip away until you've got fewer than 10% at the top. 7% of CEOs are women, 9% of heads of state, only 25% of members of government globally are women. So for me, gender equality is very true. Gender equality is 50% representation of women in any room, in any discussion, at any table, in any decision. And I deeply believe that many of the problems in this world, not all of them, but many of the problems in this world are caused by a lack of women being represented at the table and in leadership, and that many of them would be solved very simply by having 50% representation, because frankly, women's opinions they're getting missed or ignored or overruled and overwritten in too many situations, because the women are just not there and they're not represented in big enough numbers and big enough percentages to be really, really listened to. And I believe we could solve so much with this. Oh, and by the way, we know that businesses perform better, deliver better results when they're led by women and men equally. So yeah, for me, equality is just that. It's 50. I'm not interested in 30% targets, 40% targets. Don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about 50%. I'm gonna let it go on the 51%, but I would like to see 50%, and I'm not going to shut up until we get it.
So amazing. I really love listening to you. You have such a powerful voice, and it's an informed voice because you've been holding high-level executive positions in the corporate world. So Gill, tell us a little bit about your own journey. What happened throughout your life that maybe inspired you to do this type of work and eventually write this book, Why Men Win at Work?
I haven't always done this work, and I haven't, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, or if you told me 10 years ago that I was going to be doing this work, I would have thought you were crazy. I was born near Liverpool. I was very much brought up to believe that I was the equal of anyone. I was the third of 3 daughters. My parents, I went to a mixed comprehensive school. My parents, my family brought me up to believe I was the equal of anybody, any gender. And I really believe that. And I believed that for a really long time. You know, I went from Liverpool to Cambridge University. I went straight from there to start working at Procter Gamble through their brand management function initially, and then, you know, went up to marketing director, general manager, senior vice president, running businesses. My last job there was senior vice president for the beauty business for Europe, India, Middle East, and Africa, based in Geneva. So it was a very, very long time before I personally really saw and understood the gender inequality issue. But then I saw it, and I saw it at that senior vice president level, because that was the first time in my career, it was actually the first time in my life that I found myself in a male dominant culture. And I know that many, many women, I was lucky, I know many women find themselves in a male dominant culture and, you know, really, really outnumbered much, much earlier than I did. Some women, you know, it happens in childhood and teenage years. But for me, it was really at that level. I was well into my 40s. And that's because I was lucky. I was in an excellent company where actually it was quite equal and diverse to quite a senior level, particularly in my function, which being the marketing function up until the general management level. At marketing director level, it was 50-50 women. And honestly, if anyone was dominating those rooms and those discussions, it was the girls and it was me. So senior vice president level, though, suddenly you're in rooms, board meetings, exec team meetings, 80% plus men. And it's very, very different. It's really, you feel the difference. It's like a temperature change. And I could feel the impact on me, but more importantly, because this isn't about me, I'm fine, you know, I could see the impact it was having on the other women around me. And I was quite fascinated by it. I didn't understand what it was. I could feel things that I didn't get. I didn't know what it was. I was saying the same things I'd always said, being the person I'd always been, that had worked really, really well for me in a more balanced culture. But it just wasn't having the same. I could feel I wasn't having the same impact, and the women around me weren't either. So I was fascinated. So I actually studied it. I started to read books, articles, everything, to try and understand it, and did start to understand it. And the combination of reading all of that and my experiences, I felt I had an understanding of this that was helpful to share. And so I made myself a promise at that point that when I left that job, the first thing I was going to do was to write a book about it. And so I did leave, and I wrote Why Men Win at Work and How We Can Make Inequality History. And honestly, it was almost a compulsion. I had to write it because I had all this stuff that I'd learned and that I understood. Of course, you know, there's a lot of data in there about the issue. Yes, it's an issue. Why gender equality is so good for business and society and all of us. But I think what's really interesting about it is the why. Why does this happen? Why, despite all the good intentions, despite the fact that women are 50% of the population, as we've said, equal intelligence, competence, leadership ability, and there are such good intentions, and most men are good and decent, and they're not waking up in the morning thinking how they can build the patriarchy and destroy women. Why does this happen? And so I you know, share all of those invisible and unconscious and unintended forces that combine to make this happen and to lead us by the nose without us realizing it, to continue this self-fulfilling prophecy of a world that is run by men.
That's wonderful. Tell us more about the book. What have you found throughout your researches, throughout your readings, and what have you learned through your experience as a female in the boardrooms?
I think, yeah, the really interesting thing for me in the book is the why, you know, and people ask me, so Jill, tell us, you know, why do men win at work? Just, you know, give us the answer. And I say, well, actually, I can give you a very simple answer to that question. There is a simple answer, and the simple answer is men win at work because the people who make decisions, when they make decisions about who to give a promotion to or a big leadership job to, they give it to the person they think is best, right? Of course they do. Why would they not? It's usually in their interests. It's usually going to, you know, affect their own work and their own status. So of course they give it to the person they think's the best. And for the big jobs, in over 90% of cases, the person thinks the man is the best.
Mm-hmm.
So they give him the job. She's very good. I interviewed some women. I tried to find a woman, but the man was just the best for the job. So what am I supposed to do? So they give it to the man because they think he's the best, but it can't be right, can it? It cannot be right.
Always.
The man in 90% of cases. Let's say for the sake of argument, it's true in 50% of cases, but it can't be true in 90% of cases. So the real question is, why do we think the man's better usually? And that is a very complex question and a very complex answer, and it is a combination of these invisible and unconscious forces combining to make us believe, really deeply believe, that the man is the stronger performer. And that is forces like the invisible power of culture, the competence versus confidence equation, the umbrella theory that I talk about a lot, and all of the things that drive that, and many other things that are combining to make us, you know, truly perceive that the strongest performer, the man for the job, is the man, and that whilst the woman may be strong, she's just not quite as good. And of course, we know that in many, many cases, she absolutely is as good. She absolutely is as competent, maybe in some instances even more so.
Yeah.
But we're just not seeing that. So that's what the book's about. It's about all of those forces, and it helps women, men, all genders understand those forces and understand their own contribution to that, because we're all contributing to that. And then the powerful thing is when you understand them, when you understand all of these things, you can break them down and you can actually take action against all of these things, every single one of them. And if we all take action on all of them, we can actually change it, and we can actually change the results, and we can actually start to see those 50% of occasions when the woman really should be our choice for the job. And we can change the world, and it really would be a better world for all of us. You know, this, I always say to men, this is for you too. This is not a women's issue. Men are losing from gender inequality. They are losing just as much as women are. Their businesses are losing out because they, you know, any business that's not run with diversity is a weaker business than it could be. But also personally, men are losing out. I always say, you know, men may be winning at work, but most of them are losing at home and losing in their personal life. So many men tell me, look, I'm not happy with this. I'd like to see, if they have a family, I'd like to see my kids more. I'd like to be more present at home, but things are not set up for me to be that because there are stereotypical gender expectations. Men are losing from this, women are losing from this, everyone's losing from this, and we can change it. We just have to understand it, and then we have to work on it.
Now let's look and explore the relationship between gender equality and happiness.
I think there's a huge, huge link to happiness. I mean, obviously, I talk a lot about the business case, so you have to talk a lot about the business case It's a key way to get companies and organizations to work on this, because I tell them it's a competitive advantage for them. And it is, because frankly, right now, virtually no company is doing this well. So the ones who do it well are going to win, are going to get a competitive advantage. In 100 years, I hope everyone's doing it well and it will just be the base. But for now, it's a competitive advantage. But absolutely, it's a happiness question as well.
So fantastic. It sounds so real and so realistic at the same time. It is possible. It is. And I feel that what you're talking about, it's our programming, it's the conditioning that has influenced our lives and has shaped us all. And I love the fact that you talk about us all contributing somehow, including us women, because in a way, I am not sure if we are facilitating this, but it's clearly that we are allowing it, isn't it? We tolerate it. We let men in a way do it because we are their mothers, we are their sisters, we are their daughters, their wives. And sometimes we don't say much about it, or we say nothing about it when they get all of these leading positions and when women are left out. And of course, I feel that we can change this, and it started to change in a way. I see it in our social life, I see it in the therapy room. We have this feminist movement now, we have the Me Too campaign. I mean, there's a lot going on in there. What I'd like to hear from you, Gill, now that you've written the book, now that you had the time to reflect on it and maybe get some reviews and start this proper conversation about it, what is the relationship between gender equality and happiness? And what is the impact on women's mental health and on men's mental health?
Women are, it's a source of unhappiness for many women. You know, I've coached, mentored so many women through my career and through my life. It's an extremely unhappy place to be in when you're a woman who's working really, really hard and is, you know, intelligent, really capable, doing a fantastic job, and not being seen for what you're doing, not being valued for what you're contributing, not being rewarded for what you're contributing, and seeing, you know, other people, often men, getting the salary increases that you're not getting, the promotions that you think you deserve, the leadership role that you think you deserve. That causes a lot of unhappiness for women. And you know that we can talk about the umbrella theory as one of the biggest pieces of coaching that I give to women, is be aware of that umbrella theory, because that you're not making yourself visible. We can come back to that, but it's a big source of unhappiness. And you know, we see a lot of women who have enormous ambition for their career, but you know, ultimately, and particularly if they get to a point where they have children and they're being pulled by the family, they get so unhappy that they give up. Right? They give up, and they either decide to downscale their career, walk away from it altogether, or frankly leave a company and go and set up a business of their own where they can create their own culture and they can, you know, create their own value for what they're doing. Very, very frustrating for women. Meanwhile, we've got unhappy men, right? We've got unhappy men. As you've said, those gender stereotypes that are programmed into us from almost birth. As soon as we start looking at screens, whether it's TV or iPads or laptops or whatever it is, what is the screen telling us? The screen is showing us men in leadership, working, you know, forceful roles, and it's showing us women in kitchens, in bedrooms, in skimpy clothes. That's still, you know, the news is dominated by male journalists. News stories are dominated by male stories. We can't help this. We're being programmed by this. I've got a huge to-do list for all those media makers, by the way. They've created a lot of this issue and they can change it. But what that means is that you know, they're just as there's an expectation for women that not all women actually, you know, want to have that life that is expected of them. Not all women want to be the wife and the mother and the COO of the house. But equally, not all men want to be the breadwinner who's working like a dog and never gets to come home, and whose boss raises their eyebrows if they ever request flexible work. I have so many men who've said to me over the last 2 years, because, you know, I bang on a lot about 50-50, right? And I say we will never be 50-50 at work until we're 50-50 at home, because it just doesn't add up. If women are doing all the work at home, they don't have the hours in the day to compete on the career in the same way as well. So many men have said to me, Jill, I would love to be 50-50 at home. But when I ask the boss to work flexibly or hybrid work or work from home some days, the boss raises their eyebrows and asks questions about whether I'm taking my career seriously. Whereas they are absolutely then nodding like an enthusiastic doggy when the woman asks for that. That's gender stereotypes, gender stereotyped expectations. And, you know, one of the big things I say to employers, you have to have gender neutral policies, gender neutral parental policies, gender neutral parenting policies, gender neutral flexible working policies, all of these things, and not just on paper. You have to have gender neutral policies in practice, which means when someone shows up in front of you and asks to leverage that policy, whatever gender they are, you give them exactly the same response, which is absolutely yes, and you do not raise your eyebrows. So these men, you know, they're not, this is a source of unhappiness for them. They've particularly, you know, one of the things the pandemic taught men was, you know, frankly, if they had families, how much they liked seeing more of their kids and more of their partners, and spending less time commuting, still doing the work. Everybody, good people do the work. They don't need to be in the office to do the work. That was a source of happiness for them in a very miserable time generally. That was a big source of happiness for men and families. And many men are feeling that's taken away now, because now we're back to inverted commas normality, and they are just not expected to be doing that. It is sexist. It is sexist towards women. It is sexist towards men. And all of this is causing unhappiness for everyone, because women aren't getting what they want from their work, and men are not getting what they want for their personal life and their families. So that's the negative source of unhappiness. And we know that these societies that are closest to gender equality, and nobody's there isn't a country in the world that has gender equality, but the ones that are closest, they are the happiest societies. These are the happiest people. These are the best relationships, the strongest relationships, the happiest relationships. So I'm talking about the unhappiness that comes from gender inequality. But the good news is that when we address it, when we work on it, when we drive it, it's a huge happiness driver. Why the hell would we not want that? I mean, what a miserable world this is. I'm sorry, but if you see an obvious route to happiness, why would you not take it?
So great. That was very, very insightful. So if we all agree that men have run the world across cultures, across industries and communities and so on, what is the reality today? I mean, I'm talking about the Western world. I'm not sure if you follow what's going on in the East, but here in the West, what is really happening and where are we heading to, Jill?
So I'm really depressed. I've been really depressed the last few months. You know, anyone who knows me, anyone who follows me knows that I've been frustrated for a long time about the lack of progress that we've made. And I get frustrated when people talk about progress, because I think it's a perception, not reality. I think the media is very good at making a big fuss when a woman gets a CEO role or a head of state position. And they make that very visible, and they create this perception that we have equality. And there are many, many men who'll tell you, I don't understand why we even talk about equality. There are women everywhere, women stealing my jobs everywhere, they'll tell you. But I say, no, look at the facts. I'm sorry, but that's just, it's a perception, it's not reality. The facts say we are a million miles from equality. 7% CEOs are women, 9% heads of state of women, as we've said, 25% of government. We are a long, long way from equality. So don't be duped by the marketing people making you feel like there are women in these positions. There really are not. So I've been frustrated by the lack of progress, but I have to tell you, if we talked 2 or 3 years ago, I would not have dreamt that it was actually going to get even worse than that, and that we weren't just going to stay stuck. We were actually going to move backwards, and we have moved backwards. I mean, I think we all know the pandemic has moved us backwards. It's further entrenched that whole burden of unpaid work at home being taken by women, and the damage that does to women's careers, and obviously to men's happiness as well, from a work-life balance point of view. That's been a huge impact. We know that a significant percentage of women have scaled down their careers or actually shut them down altogether. So that was a huge backward step. We know men were getting significantly more pay rises through the pandemic. They were getting significantly more promotions. So that was a backward step, which was, bad enough. But then if we look at, what's happening more recently, we are going backwards to a point that I just would not have believed was possible. I mean, I think the women of Afghanistan, heartbroken to see the work that they have done to make the progress that they had made on their rights, just completely undone. All of that undone. Devastating to see them their girls not being able to have access to education. Devastated to see them being told what they can wear and not wear outside of their homes, when it absolutely would not be their choice to do that in all instances. Huge backward step there. And then obviously, I mean, I think many, not just women, many people absolutely thrown by what's happened in the US in the last few weeks, and the overturning of Roe versus Wade, and frankly, that the complete reversal of extremely hard-earned women's rights. For me, it was unthinkable even a year ago that something like that could happen. I have very complex views on abortion personally. With my own story. I was raised a Catholic. I had my son when I was at university, which was not ideal timing, but I can tell you, I have extremely simple views on choice, and I have extremely simple views on women's rights. And I find it devastating that we are moving backwards like this. And it brings me back always to the same thing. Our rights as women, and our right to equality as women, is fragile as long as we don't have equal representation.
Fair enough.
As long as we are only represented, even 30% at the top of society, we're fragile, and these things can happen. And so for me, the answer is always very simple. The answer is we have to get that 50% representation in line with our share of the population. We have to get that, because I do deeply believe that when we're at 50% representation in leadership, we won't go back. We will make progress, and we won't see these kinds of backwards steps, because we will just have that representation. You know, the big thing I say to her, the reason I'm feeling more optimistic in the last few weeks is I see a force of women, you know, women are waking up, you know. When we're just, in inverted commas, talking about how many women are CEOs and how many women are running countries, it kind of all feels a bit luxury and hypothetical, and does it really matter? And I think women let it go, you know. We've got so much crap to do, haven't we? So, you know, women don't necessarily fight for their rights. It doesn't seem very urgent, but when things like this happen, women wake up and they say, oh, hold on, now you've pissed me off. And what I see is more and more women saying, hold on a minute, they only get to make these laws because they were voted in to make these laws. And I have a vote, and we have 50% of the vote. If we don't like what our leaders are doing, and obviously this is not true in every country, but it's certainly true in Western Europe and in the US. If we don't like the rules these people are making, we can change these people. Women have the power to change these people. And I see more and more people, more and more women realizing that. And by the way, we've got a hell of a lot of men out there who are on our side and who are ready to change these people as well. So we've got power. I don't think we've been using it. You know, there's an amazing organization called Purse Power who campaign on the message. Women have 80% of the purchasing power in the world. You know, it's bad news that women are doing 80% of the unpaid work at home and for the family, if they have one. The good news, though, is because they're doing that, they have 80% control of the money that gets spent in the family. You know, if women really used that power and only spent that money with organizations and businesses and enterprises that actually were supporting what they wanted them to support, that's huge power. I think women are waking up that we got power, we haven't been using it. You pushed me too far now, and I'm going to use it. And I think that's inspiring. And actually, you know, sometimes in life you need to take a horrible step backwards to make you realize that, my God, you need to take some steps forwards. And I think that might be happening. I think we were a little bit asleep. I think we're awake now.
I love that. So how do you see the future, Gill? What do you see happening over the next, maybe, I don't know, couple of decades?
What I really hope is that women, well, all of us will use our power to get the people into leadership that we want, the people into leadership who are going to do the things that we need them to do. They're going to make progress. They're going to make progress on equality. They're going to protect and defend and make absolutely concrete women's rights. They're going to see the positive repercussions of that. They're going to see what that does for businesses, but also for people, for society. They're just going to see, what, my goodness, we all got stronger, we all got happier. We want to continue this self-fulfilling prophecy. We get as quickly as possible to that 50% representation, and we stick there, and we all reap the rewards from it. So that's what I hope is going to happen. But what I will say is, you know, there are people who kind of believe it's going to happen naturally. You know, the World Economic Forum, it always annoys me when they throw out this number of how many hundreds of years it's going to take to get to equality. That irritates me, because that creates a sense of, oh, it's going to organically happen. It's going to take a long time, but it's going to organically happen. And I absolutely disagree with that. I absolutely believe that if we just allow it to happen, if we just wait for it to happen organically and naturally, it will actually never happen. It will be eternity before it happens. Because of all of these invisible and unconscious forces that are so powerful, and they're working on us, they will just continue this self-fulfilling prophecy of a male dominant, male-led world until infinity. So if we want this future, this 50% future to happen at all, and if we want it to happen fast, we need to make some manual interventions. It's not going to happen just naturally and organically. We need to set ourselves that goal, and we need to put things in place. We need to set the targets. We need to overcome all of those forces that are working against it, and we need to make it happen. And as long as we stick with this, best case, we've got 30% women, we're just not going to get there. So I hope we can do it. And I'm not stopping till 50%. I always say we don't stop till equality. There are a lot of women with me. There is incredible work. I was at the Women's Forum in Berlin 2 weeks ago. Fantastic 2 days, full of incredible women, and some men, not enough men there. I'd love to see more, doing phenomenal work to drive equality. We got to keep pushing. There are so many women out there who aren't stopping till we get there. We need more and more. We need more men. Importantly, they've got 90% of the power in the world. We're not going to get anywhere without them. We need them on board. We need more of my feminists, as I call them, growing tribe of feminists, to make this change. And the one thing, that I would say about the future I don't want, one of this, there's one of the memes that's always circulating on Instagram, and that I absolutely hate, which is the future is female. I can't bear it. I don't want the future to be female. I don't want the future to be male. I don't want the future to be dominated by any gender or any group. I want the future to be equal. The future is equal, is what I want, because honestly, I can promise you, if hypothetically we ever got to a world which was women dominated, and we had 80%, 90% plus women at the top, we'd have issues the other way. We'd have a gender equality issue the other way. We'd be missing important issues and discussions and needs of men. For me, the future is not female, the future is equal.
Well, it sounds very encouraging and really, really spot on. And now, as we are approaching the end of the podcast, I'd like, maybe in a more practical way, Gill, talking to the watchers and the listeners, what can we each do to contribute to changing our society from our little positions, maybe as parents, as educators, as leaders, or simply people, privileged enough to live in this modern civilized world? What can we do to create this gender equality in our society?
As you know, the book Why Men Win at Work ends with a massive to-do list. The last chapter is a huge to-do list for everybody on how to make inequality history. A to-do list for parents, teachers, media makers, employers, managers, women, and finally, the most important in many ways, men, who have all the power. So I've got a to-do list for everyone. Can't share all of those now, but a couple that I would share. That the first would be to women, and the second to men. To women, I would say a huge amount of what's holding you back is the invisible power of culture and the competence versus confidence equation, which are combining to affect your performance, and affect the way that you are perceived. One of the single biggest things and that shouldn't happen, and we shouldn't have a male dominant culture, and we're going to talk about in a second. And we should all value competence and not just confidence, but these are human realities. These things are happening. The biggest thing I would say to women that you can do is, if you haven't done it already, invest in knowing your own strengths and superpowers, right? Because it is your strengths that will make you successful in this life and that will make you happy. You will not succeed or be happy by trying to be, as Judy Garland said, a second-rate version of somebody else. And I say to women, I'm a huge fan of Gallup Strengths Finder. I'm a certified coach. I love that philosophy, the philosophy of it's all about your strengths and superpowers. I say to women, give me 90 minutes and I will find your confident core. We will find your confident core. We will find your superpowers. You will know them, and you will take them into every situation, into every culture, into every meeting, into every discussion. You will speak from there, you will work from there, and people will feel those superpowers. They will feel your competence, and they will feel your confidence, and they will feel confident in you. So if you're a woman out there and you cannot say to me, Jill, I know my superpowers and they're not negotiable, and that's what I work from, and if I'm in a culture that doesn't value them, I leave that culture. If you're not saying that, get in touch. We need to find that confident core. It does not take long, but it will be life-changing for you. And then the other big, advice for making inequality history that I would give to men is I guess, first and foremost, there's nothing to fear here. This is not a women's issue. It's an issue for everyone. It's an opportunity for everyone. You will gain from gender equality just as much as women will. Your business will gain. Your relationship, if you have a relationship with a woman, it will be better. Everything in your life is going to be better. So nothing to fear from signing up and being one of my feminists and championing this. And probably the biggest practical tip I would give you is, if you're in a business or an organization, think 50%. Every situation, think 50%. Recruiting, talent reviews, promotion decisions, salary pot, putting together your team. Think 50% and you will not go far wrong. And if you're struggling to get to 50%, get in touch, because I promise you the women are there. You'll think they're not there. The women are there. You just can't see them. You just can't find them. But they are there. They are 50% of the population. They're equally intelligent, competent, capable. They are there. So if you think 50% and you're struggling to get to 50%, what you need to understand is why. What am I getting wrong? And how do I overcome that? How do I find them? How do I support them? How do I make sure that they make it and that their value is truly seen? Because you're missing out. If you don't have 50% women, you are fishing. You're only fishing in half the pond, right? So you're missing out on talent. You're missing out on quality. Think 50% at every step and you will not go far wrong.
That was absolutely inspiring. Where can people find out more about you, Jill, and where can they order your book?
I would love everyone to get in touch. I'm on LinkedIn, Gill Whitty-Collins, Jill with a G, WHITTY-Collins. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter at G Whitty-Collins, Instagram at Gill Whitty-Collins. And come to my website. My website is very simple, www.gillwhittycollins.com. If you come there, you can see all sorts of stuff, videos of me talking far too much all of the time, articles I've written, my rant of the month blog. Sign up for my newsletter, get in touch. I I can tell you, if you write to me, I will reply. And if you need help, I'm here for you. I can support you as a consultant, as a coach, as a trainer, with workshops, or you know what, just with a little bit of advice. And read the book. Best place to get it, cheapest place to get it is amazon.co.uk, and it's got all of this stuff in there about why this happens. And when you honestly, you'll have an epiphany, and everyone who reads it tells me afterwards, men, women, all genders, I have changed the next day something that I've been doing, and I am seeing results from that. So have a read and then write to me and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Gill. It's been a wonderful conversation, but it is time to stop now. A big thanks to all of you listening, and many, many thanks to you, Gill, for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful to talk, and I love to think about this in the context of happiness, because at the end of the day, that's all we're all trying to be, right? We're just, that's it. And I do believe that this makes a happier world. So I am not stopping till equality.
That's it for now. Until next time, we are wishing you all good health and happiness.